Alina Vasquez had served the Concord of 12 for 40 years. She was old now, her dark hair streaked with silver, but her mind remained sharp as ever. She stood at the window of her office on Nexus Prime and looked out at the alien city. Towers of crystal and metal stretched toward a purple sky. Ships moved between buildings like fish swimming through water. It was beautiful, and Alina had spent her entire career telling humanity that they were lucky to be here. The Concord had welcomed Earth 300 years ago. When the first alien ships appeared in human skies, people had been terrified. But the Concord came with gifts. They brought fusion power that ended energy shortages forever. They brought medicine that cured diseases humans had fought for centuries. They brought knowledge of the stars and offered humanity a place among the galactic community in exchange. Humans agreed to follow certain rules. The stewardship protocols, they called them. Humanity could only settle 17 colony worlds. Certain types of research were forbidden, especially anything involving dimensional physics. The Concord explained that these rules existed for humanity's protection. Young species needed guidance, they said. Humans were like children taking their first steps, and the Concord would be their patient teachers. Alina had believed every word. She had defended the protocols to angry politicians back on Earth. She had called them necessary growing pains. She had trusted the Concord completely. That trust died on a cold morning when a messenger arrived at her door. The messenger was young, barely more than a child by Volanthe standards. The Volanthi were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, their bodies tall and thin, their skin shifting colors with their emotions. This one glowed pale blue with fear. "Keeper Sorothan wishes to see you," the messenger said. "They say it is urgent. They say they are dying." Alina knew Keeper Sorothan. The ancient Volanthi managed the Obsidian Library, a vast archive containing records from millions of years of galactic history. Sorothan had always been kind to her, answering her questions about alien cultures with patience and wisdom. The thought of them dying filled her with sadness. She followed the messenger through winding streets to the library's entrance. Inside, the air was cool and filled with the soft hum of data crystals. Millions of them lined the walls, each one containing more information than all of Earth's computers combined. Alina had visited many times, but she had only ever seen a tiny fraction of what the library held. Sorothan waited in a small chamber deep within the building. The old Volanthi lay on a bed of woven light, their skin flickering between gray and pale green. Their eyes, usually bright with intelligence, now looked clouded and tired. "Ambassador Vasquez," Sorothan whispered. "Thank you for coming." Alina knelt beside the bed. "What happened to you?" "Age," Sorothan said simply. "Even my kind cannot live forever. But I did not call you here to discuss my death. I called you because there is something you must know. Something I have kept secret for far too long." The old Volanthi reached beneath their blanket and pulled out a small crystal chip. It glowed faintly in the dim light. "Take this," Sorothan said. "Everything is inside. The truth about your species." "The truth about the Concord?" Lena took the chip carefully. It felt warm in her palm. "I don't understand." "What truth?" Sorothan's colors shifted to deep purple, a sign of shame among the Volanthi. "Your species was never primitive, Ambassador. The Concord found your ancestors 2,000 years ago. They were already experimenting with concepts that would have led to faster-than-light travel. They were brilliant, creative, dangerous." Lena's heart began to pound. "What do you mean, dangerous?" The Concord ran projections. They calculated what humanity would become if left alone. By your year 2200, humans would have achieved intergalactic travel. By 2500, you would have surpassed every species in the galaxy. The 12 were terrified. "So what did they do?" Alina asked, though part of her did not want to hear the answer. "They created a retrovirus, a disease that rewrote human genetics. It suppressed certain neural pathways, creativity, intuition, the spark that made your kind special." Sorothan coughed weakly. "They infected your entire planet. Every human carried the virus from that day forward." Alina felt the world spinning around her. "That's impossible. Our history shows steady progress. The Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, the Space Age. Yes, Sorthan said. Because humans fought through the fog we placed in their minds. Even suppressed, your species achieved wonders. Imagine what you could have done without our chains. Tears burned in Elena's eyes. Why are you telling me this now? Because I am dying, and I cannot carry this guilt any longer. Because I have watched your people for 300 years, and I have seen your kindness, your courage, your endless hope. You deserved better than what we did to you. Sorothan reached out and touched Elena's hand. The chip contains everything. Genetic records, meeting transcripts, projections, evidence that cannot be denied. Elena gripped the crystal tightly. What am I supposed to do with this? That is for you to decide. But know this, Ambassador. The virus is degrading. Human bodies have been rejecting it slowly for generations. Your scientists have accidentally accelerated the process without knowing what they were fighting against. The Concord's control is weakening. Soon, your people will begin to wake up. Sorothan's eyes closed, and their breathing grew shallow. I am sorry, the old Valenthi whispered. For everything my people did, for the lie we forced you to live. Elena stayed with Sorothan until the end. When the Keeper finally passed, she sat alone in the quiet chamber, holding the crystal chip that contained the greatest secret in the Wada secret. The Concord had not saved humanity. They had imprisoned them for 2,000 years. Humans had lived in chains they could not see, their potential stolen before they ever had a chance to reach it. Every struggle, every achievement, every moment of human history had been a fight. Against invisible walls, Elena thought about her family back on Earth. Her grandchildren, bright and curious, always asking questions about the stars. She thought about the billions of humans across 17 colony worlds, all of them believing they were lucky to have been found by such kind and generous aliens. They had been lied to. Every single one of them. Elena stood slowly. Her legs felt weak, but her mind was clear. She knew what she had to do. She would not go to the government. Politicians would argue and delay and worry about diplomatic consequences. She needed someone who could understand the science. Someone who had already been punished for asking forbidden questions. She needed Dr. Marcus Chen. Elena left the library and walked through the alien streets one last time. The beautiful towers now looked different to her. They were not symbols of friendship and cooperation. They were monuments to a lie that had lasted 2,000 years. But lies could not last forever, and humanity was about to wake up. The Swiss Alps had not changed in centuries. Snow still covered the peaks. Pine trees still grew thick on the lower slopes. The air still carried the clean, cold smell of mountain wind. But beneath one particular mountain, hidden from satellites and scanners, Dr. Marcus Chen had built something that would change everything. Elena found him in his laboratory. Surrounded by holographic displays and humming machines, Marcus was 60 years old, with gray hair that stood up in wild directions and eyes that burned with intensity. 5 years ago, the Concord had stripped him of his credentials for researching human cognitive enhancement. They called his work dangerous. They said he was chasing fantasies. Now Elena understood why they had been so eager to stop him. Ambassador Vasquez Marcus said when she entered, I never expected to see you down here. Aren't you worried about your reputation? Elena placed the crystal chip on his desk. I need you to analyze this. Everything you thought about human potential, everything they punished you for believing, it's all true. Marcus listened as she told him everything Keeper Sorothan had revealed. His expression shifted from disbelief to shock to cold fury. When she finished, he picked up the chip and plugged it into his systems. For 3 hours, they reviewed the evidence together. Genetic sequences showing artificial modifications in human DNA. Concord meeting transcripts discussing the human problem. Projections showing what humanity would have achieved without interference. Each new piece of information hit Elena like a physical blow, but Marcus grew calmer with every revelation. I knew it, he said finally. I always knew something was wrong. Human brains are too complex, too powerful for the way we actually think. It's like having a racing engine in a vehicle with the brakes permanently engaged. Can you fix it? Elena asked. Marcus zoomed in on a particular genetic sequence. The virus they used was designed for a primitive species. They never imagined we would develop medicine advanced enough to affect it. Look here, he pointed to a cluster of proteins. Human immune systems have been fighting this thing for 2,000 years. Each generation pushes back a little harder. We're already winning. We just need something to finish the job. How long? Give me 6 months. Alina gave him 6 months, and he delivered in 4. The catalyst was elegant in its simplicity. A single treatment that targeted the viral proteins and destroyed them completely. Marcus tested it on himself first, sitting alone in his laboratory while the medicine worked through his system. The change was not immediate. It crept up slowly over several days. Colors seemed brighter. Sounds seemed clearer. The biggest difference was in his mind. Problems that had frustrated him for years suddenly had obvious solutions. Connections he had never seen before appeared everywhere. It was like waking up from a dream he didn't know he was having. It works, he told Elena, his voice shaking with emotion. It actually works. They recruited volunteers carefully. Artists who had always felt like their best work was just out of reach. Scientists who sensed there was something more beyond the boundaries of accepted knowledge. Philosophers who asked questions that made others uncomfortable. Each one received the catalyst, and each one transformed. A composer named Sarah wrote a symphony in 3 days. When it was performed, audiences wept with joy they could not explain. The music touched something deep inside them, something that had been sleeping for thousands of years. A physicist named James solved equations that had puzzled the Concord's best minds for 10,000 years. He scribbled solutions on napkins over breakfast, laughing at how simple they seemed now that he could actually see them. A 12-year-old girl named Maya drew blueprints in her notebook during class. Her teacher thought she was just doodling until a scientist recognized what she had created. It was a design for an engine that could fold space itself, allowing travel between dimensions that the Concorde had declared impossible. Word spread quietly. Through networks of trusted individuals, more volunteers came forward. Each one woke up and immediately understood what had been done to their species. The anger was intense, but it was matched by something even stronger. Hope.'s leaders met in secret to discuss what they had learned. Some wanted to confront the Concorde immediately. Others urged caution, warning that the alien alliance had overwhelming military power. The debates grew heated, as different factions argued for different approaches. Alina stood before them and made a proposal. "We wake everyone," she said quietly, without the Concorde knowing. "We put the catalyst in water supplies, vaccines, food shipments. Within 2 years, every human being will be free of the virus." "And then what?" asked the president of Earth. "We'll have 8 billion angry people demanding justice. We'll have 8 billion awakened minds working together," Elena replied. "Do you understand what that means? The Concorde feared what we could become. Let's show them they were right to be afraid." The decision was made. The awakening began. It happened slowly enough that the Concorde's observers noticed nothing unusual. A slight increase in patent applications, surge of new art and music, children performing better in school. The changes could be explained by natural variation, by cultural shifts, by simple luck. But on Earth and across the 17 colony worlds, something miraculous was happening. People who had spent their entire lives feeling incomplete suddenly felt whole. Dreams became more vivid. Ideas flowed more freely. The invisible walls that had surrounded human thought for 2,000 years were crumbling in hidden facilities. On Earth and secret stations in the asteroid belt, awakened engineers built things that should have been impossible. They did not build weapons. The Concorde expected weapons, so weapons would be pointless. Instead, they built doors, dimensional portals that could open pathways to places the Concorde could not follow. Fold space engines that could carry ships across the galaxy in moments. Technologies based on principles the Concorde had banned because they knew humans would master them too quickly. Within 18 months, humanity had established 17,000 colonies in dimensional pockets hidden from normal space. Cities grew in places the Concorde's sensors could not detect. Millions of humans lived and worked and raised families in territories that officially did not exist. Alina watched the progress from her apartment on Nexus Prime. still playing the role of loyal ambassador. She attended Concord meetings and smiled at the alien leaders who had enslaved her species. She nodded politely when they praised humanity's steady progress under their guidance. They had no idea what was coming. Marcus joined her one evening. Having traveled through a hidden portal from Earth, "We're ready," he said. "The dimensional fleet is complete. The colonies are secure. Every human being has been awakened." Alina looked out at the alien city. "I spent my whole life believing the Concord saved us. I defended them to my own people. I trusted them. That's not your fault. They designed the virus to make us trust them." "I know." Alina turned away from the window. "But I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure no one ever controls humanity again." The Centennial Galactic Summit was 3 months away. Every major species in the galaxy would send representatives. The Concord's leaders would give speeches about cooperation and peace and the bright future they were building together. Alina intended to use that stage to tell the truth. And once the truth was spoken, nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The Grand Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime was the largest enclosed space in the galaxy. Its domed ceiling stretched so high that clouds sometimes formed beneath it. Thousands of seats rose in tiers around, central stage where speakers addressed the gathered representatives of countless worlds. Today, for the Centennial Galactic Summit, every seat was filled. High Chancellor Vatrix of the Concord sat in the position of honor, surrounded by the other 11 leaders who ruled galactic civilization. Vatrix had governed for 600 years. They had watched species rise and fall. They had crushed rebellions and absorbed empires. They had shaped the galaxy according to their vision of order and stability. They had never faced anything like what was about to happen. Alina Vasquez walked to the central podium with steady steps. She wore the formal robes of an Earth ambassador, but something about her had changed. She stood straighter. Her eyes held a light that made some observers uncomfortable. Several of the alien delegates whispered to each other, wondering if the human woman was ill. "Distinguished representatives," Alina began. "Leaders of the Concord, I come before you today to discuss the relationship between humanity and the galactic community." Vatrix nodded approvingly. This was expected. Earth's ambassador would give a speech thanking the Concord for their guidance, reaffirming humanity's commitment to the stewardship protocols, and expressing hope for continued cooperation. They had heard such speeches many times before, but Alina did not give that speech. 300 years ago, the Concord welcomed Earth into the galactic family. "You gave us technology. You gave us medicine. You gave us hope." Alina paused. "You also gave us lies." The whispers in the hall died instantly. Vatrix leaned forward, their ancient eyes narrowing. "What are you saying, Ambassador?" "I am saying that we know the truth." Alina's voice carried across the vast chamber without wavering. "We know what the Concord did to our ancestors 2,000 years ago. You have the genetic evidence, the meeting transcripts, the projections you ran when you discovered our potential." She spoke her next words in primal Velanthy, a language that had been dead for 50,000 years. The translator devices throughout the hall flickered with confusion, unable to process a tongue they did not recognize. "We know about the virus," Alina continued, switching back to standard galactic speech, "the one you engineered to suppress human cognitive abilities. The one you spread across our entire planet to ensure we would never become a threat to your power." The hall erupted. Delegates from 100 species shouted questions and demands. Some called Alina a liar. Others demanded evidence. The noise grew so loud that the security systems activated automatic dampening fields. Through it all, the 12 sat frozen in their seats. Their silence was more damning than any confession. Alina raised her hand, and the displays throughout the chamber flickered. Images appeared in the air above the stage. Genetic sequences with clear signs of artificial modification. Meeting transcripts written in the ancient script of the Concord's founding species. Projections showing human development with and without the virus. 2 lines on a graph that diverged dramatically around the year 0. "This information comes from the Obsidian Library," Alina said. "It was given to me by Keeper Sarathan before their death. They kept the secret for centuries, but they could not carry the guilt any longer." Chancellor Vatrix stood slowly. Their voice remained calm, practiced over centuries of political manipulation. These accusations are the delusions of a primitive species that has grown too ambitious.
Ah,
The Concord will not dignify these claims with a response. Ambassador Vasquez, you are clearly unwell. We suggest you return to Earth for medical evaluation. Then explain this, Alina said. She gestured again, and the displays changed. The entire assembly watched in stunned silence as a live feed appeared, showing something impossible between Jupiter and Saturn. In a fold of space that should not exist hung a massive shipyard. 700 vessels floated in the hidden dimension, each one larger than any human ship the galaxy had ever seen. They were not built according to any design the Concord recognized. Their hulls curved in ways that suggested technologies beyond anything in galactic records. You limited us to 17 worlds, Alina said. You told us we were not ready for more. But we are no longer the species you suppressed. The virus has been purged from every human being. We have been awake for 2 years, and we have not been idle. She let the image linger before continuing. As of this moment, humanity has established 17,000 colonies in dimensional spaces you cannot access. We have developed technologies based on principles you banned because you knew we would master them too quickly. We have done in 2 years what your projections said would take us 3 centuries. Vatrix's composure finally cracked. This is impossible. Our sensors would have detected such activity. Your sensors cannot see where we have been building. Your ships cannot follow where we can go. Your weapons cannot touch what you cannot find. Lena smiled, but there was no warmth in it. For 2,000 years, you told us we were children who needed guidance. You made us believe we were primitive, limited, dependent on your wisdom and generosity. She stepped forward, her eyes locked on the 12. We were never primitive. You made us that way. And now that we are awake, you will never control us again. The hall had gone completely silent. Even the delegates who had shouted accusations moments before sat speechless, trying to process what they were witnessing. A species that had been welcomed as junior members of the galactic community had just revealed capabilities that exceeded the Concord's own. But Alina was not finished. We did not come here to threaten war. She said, we could have remained hidden. We could have left the galaxy entirely and explored the dimensional frontiers we have discovered. We could have taken revenge for what you did to our ancestors. She turned slowly, addressing not just the 12, but every representative in the hall. Instead, we came here to offer you a choice. The truth is going to spread. Every species in this galaxy will learn what the Concord did to humanity. They will ask themselves what else the 12 have hidden. They will wonder if their own histories contain similar lies. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Valanthi ambassador's skin flickered through colors Alina recognized as fear and shame. The crystalline Kethra representative made a sound like cracking ice. You can try to suppress this information, Alina continued. You can call us liars and hope that your authority holds. But we have already distributed the evidence to independent archivists across the galaxy. The truth cannot be buried again. She looked directly at Vatrix, or you can acknowledge what was done. You can help us heal the wounds of 2,000 years. You can join us in building something better than the empire of secrets you have maintained for so long. Vatrix's voice was barely a whisper. And if we refuse, then we leave. We walk through doors you cannot follow, and the galaxy never hears from humanity again. You can tell whatever story you wish about our disappearance. Elena's smile returned, sharp as a blade. But you will spend eternity wondering what we became. And you will never stop looking over your shoulder, waiting for the day we decide to return. She stepped back from the podium. The choice is yours. But I suggest you choose wisely. Humanity has already waited 2,000 years for justice. We can be patient a little longer. Alina walked out of the Grand Assembly Hall without looking back. Behind her, the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in stunned silence, facing a future they had spent millennia trying to prevent. The truth was finally free, and the galaxy would never be the same. Panic spread through. The galaxy like fire through dry grass within. Hours of Elena's speech. News channels across 1,000 worlds broadcast the evidence she had revealed. Commentators debated whether the information was real. Experts analyzed the genetic sequences and confirmed they showed clear signs of artificial modification. Historians dug through old records and found gaps that suddenly made terrible sense. The Concorde tried to maintain control. Official statements called the evidence fabricated. Loyal media outlets questioned Elena's mental health. Security forces moved to arrest the independent archivists who had received copies of the data. It was like trying to stop a flood with a paper wall. On Nexus Prime, emergency sessions of the Concorde's military council continued around the clock. Admiral Kethra stood before a holographic display showing Earth and its solar system. Her crystalline body flickered with stress patterns that her subordinates had never seen before. "We have confirmed the existence of the dimensional shipyard," she reported. "Our sensors detected it only after the humans revealed its location. We still cannot determine how they created a stable pocket in fold space. Can we destroy it?" asked Chancellor Vetrix. "We can try. But our strategists have run projections." Kethra's voice carried a tone of deep unease. "The humans showed us 700 ships and 17,000 colonies. Our analysts believe this represents perhaps 10% of their actual capabilities." The other chancellors exchanged worried glances. "If we strike Earth, we destroy one world," Kethra continued. "But we cannot find their colonies. We cannot track their ships through dimensional space. And if we attack, we give them justification to respond. They could emerge from anywhere. Our supply lines, our shipyards, our homeworlds, all vulnerable to attacks we cannot predict or prevent." Vatrix's ancient hands gripped the arms of their chair. "You are saying we cannot win a war against them. I am saying we cannot fight a war against them. Fighting implies the possibility of victory against an enemy we cannot find, cannot track, and cannot predict. We would simply be waiting for them to destroy us at their convenience." Silence filled the chamber. For 600 years, Vatrix had maintained power through careful manipulation and overwhelming force. Every rebellion had been crushed. Every rival had been eliminated. The Concorde's authority had seemed eternal. Backed by fleets that could burn worlds and armies that could conquer civilizations, none of that mattered against an enemy that existed in spaces beyond their reach. "Then we negotiate," Vetrix said finally. "Find out what the humans want." The answer came not through diplomatic channels, but through Elena Vasquez herself. She returned to Nexus Prime 3 days after the summit, walking through the streets of the alien city as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The aliens who saw her stepped aside quickly, their eyes filled with fear and wonder and something that might have been respect. She entered the Concorde's central chamber alone. Carrying nothing but a small cloth bag, the 12 waited for her. Arranged in their traditional circle of power, but their positions no longer carried the same weight. These were no longer the supreme rulers of the galaxy meeting with a representative of a primitive species. These were frightened elders facing a force they had created through their own actions. "Ambassador Vasquez," Vatrix said, "you wished to speak with us?" "I did." Lena stopped at the center of the circle and looked at each chancellor in turn. "But first, I want you to understand something. What I am about to offer is not a demand. It is not a threat. It is a genuine choice, and the decision is entirely yours." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small object. A seed, brown and ordinary, something that could be found in any garden on Earth. "This is from an oak tree," Alina said. "It takes a century to fully grow. My ancestors planted these trees knowing they would never sit in their shade. They built for future generations because that is what humans do." She placed the seed on the table before Vatrix. "You feared us because you could not imagine a species that thinks in centuries instead of years. You saw our creativity, our drive, our hunger to explore and build and discover. You saw all of this as a threat because your own species stopped dreaming long ago." Vatrix stared at the seed but did not touch it. "It could destroy you," Elena continued. "We have the capability. Our engineers have designed weapons that would make your fleets look like children's toys. Our strategists have mapped every weakness in your defenses. We could wage a war that would end the Concorde in a matter of months." "Then why haven't you?" asked one of the other chancellors. "Because destruction is not what humanity does. We build, we create. We plant seeds for trees we will never see. Elena's voice softened. And because revenge would not undo what was done to us. It would only add more pain to a galaxy that has already suffered enough. She outlined her proposal clearly and simply. The truth would be released completely. Every species in the galaxy would learn what the Concord had done to humanity, and investigations would be conducted to discover if similar suppression had been applied to others. In exchange, humanity would share its discoveries, the dimensional pathways, the cognitive liberation technology, the principles that the Concord had banned for millennia. You built your empire on secrets and control, Elena said. We are offering to help you build something new on openness and cooperation. The choice is yours, and if we refuse, Vatrix asked, then we leave. We've already found pathways to other galaxies. We have detected signals from civilizations beyond the Milky Way. There is an entire universe waiting to be explored, and we do not need your permission to explore it. Elena smiled, and this time there was genuine warmth in it. But I hope you don't refuse. Not because we need you, but because I believe you can be better than what you have been. The species that founded the Concord were not always tyrants. Somewhere in your history, there were dreamers who looked at the stars and wondered what lay beyond them. I would like to meet those dreamers again. The 12 conferred among themselves for hours. Elena waited patiently, watching the alien city through the chamber's windows. She thought about all the humans who had lived and died under the Concord's suppression. All the potential that had been wasted. All the dreams that had been stolen. But she also thought about the future. About the 17,000 colonies filled with awakened humans who were building things the galaxy had never seen. About the children who would grow up free of the chains their ancestors had worn. About the doors that were opening to places no one had ever imagined. The past could not be changed, but the future was still being written. Vatrix approached her as the sun set over the alien city. We have made our decision, the ancient chancellor said. It was not unanimous. 3 of the 12 will refuse any agreement. They are already preparing to retreat to their home systems and seal themselves away, and the others. The others have agreed to your terms. Vatrix's voice carried centuries of weariness. The truth will be released. Investigations will be conducted, and we will begin the process of sharing knowledge instead of hoarding it. Elena nodded. Thank you. Do not thank me, Ambassador. I did not make this choice out of wisdom or moral awakening. I made it because I am afraid of what your species will become, and I would rather face that future as an ally than as an enemy. That's a start, Elena said. Perhaps wisdom will come later. She picked up the oak seed from the table and held it out to Vatrix. Plant this somewhere. In 100 years, someone might sit in its shade and wonder who was thoughtful enough to plant it. That's how change begins. One seed at a time. Vatrix took the seed carefully, as if it might explode. Elena turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the oldest empire in the galaxy began the slow process of becoming something new. The first step had been taken. Now came the harder work of building a future worthy of the sacrifice. The galaxy changed faster than anyone expected. Within a year of Elena's revelation, the Concord of 12 had fractured. 5 of the ancient powers embraced the new reality immediately. Their younger generations demanded access to the dimensional pathways humanity had discovered. Scientists who had spent centuries following rigid rules suddenly found themselves free to explore forbidden questions. Artists created works that would have been unthinkable under the old order. 3 of the 12 retreated entirely. They withdrew their fleets to their home systems and erected barriers of ancient technology around their borders. They wanted nothing to do with the chaos spreading through the galaxy. They wanted things to return. It's how they had been. They would be waiting a very long time. The remaining 4 attempted to find a middle ground. They negotiated limited exchanges with humanity while trying to maintain some version of their former authority. But authority means nothing when everyone knows the truth. One by one, their subject species began asking uncomfortable questions. The Valenthi were among the first to investigate their own history. What they found shattered their understanding of themselves 60,000 years ago. The Valanthi had possessed natural telepathy so powerful they could share thoughts across light years. They had been peaceful philosophers who spent centuries in meditation, exploring the depths of consciousness itself. The Concord's founders had feared this ability even more than they feared human creativity. They had modified the Velanthi genome to reduce their telepathy to faint shadows of its original strength. When the Velanthi learned this truth, their response was not anger, but profound sadness. Generations of their people had lived with a constant sense that something was missing, that their minds were incomplete. Now they understood why. Humanity shared the cognitive liberation technology freely. Velanthi scientists adapted it for their own biology. The first restored telepaths reported experiences that brought tears to the eyes of those who witnessed them. Colors that had no names. Emotions that words could not describe. A sense of connection with the universe that their ancestors had taken for granted. The crystalline. Kethra discovered something equally disturbing. Their homeworld had been deliberately irradiated thousands of years ago. To keep their population dependent on Concord life support technology, without it, they could not survive on their own planet. The Concord had used this dependency as a leash, assuring the Kethra's loyalty through their need for continued support. Humanity's dimensional engineers found a solution. They created pocket dimensions with conditions perfectly suited to Kethra biology. For the first time in millennia, the crystalline people could live and grow without depending on anyone. Elsa's charity, story after story emerged as species across the galaxy examined their histories. Some found evidence of suppression, similar to what had been done to humans. Others discovered that the Concord had simply destroyed competing civilizations entirely, erasing all evidence of their existence. The 12 had maintained their empire not through wisdom or benevolence, but through systematic manipulation and selective genocide. Yet humanity did not lead a rebellion. They did not demand that other species follow them or accept their leadership. They simply opened doors and let others choose whether to walk through. Some species chose isolation. They took the dimensional technology and retreated to private spaces where they could heal from centuries of manipulation. Others formed new alliances based on genuine cooperation rather than enforced obedience. Trade routes developed through dimensional pathways that the old Concord maps had never shown. The rigid hierarchy that had governed the galaxy for millions of years dissolved into a sprawling web of connections. It was messy. It was chaotic. It was alive in ways the galaxy had not been for a very long time. 10 years after Elena's speech at the summit, humanity began its greatest project yet. The first intergalactic vessel hung in a dimensional pocket specially constructed for its creation. It was massive, larger than some moons. Designed to carry 10,000 beings on a journey that would take them far beyond the Milky Way. Its hull incorporated technologies from dozens of species who had chosen to join the expedition. Its crew included representatives from 20 different worlds. Elena Vasquez, now 93 years old, stood on the observation deck as the final preparations were completed. Her body was frail, but the cognitive liberation had kept her mind sharp. She had watched her species go from suppressed children to galactic pioneers in a single generation. She had seen impossible things become everyday realities, and now she was going to see something even more impossible. Ambassador Vasquez, said Captain Yuki Tanaka, the vessel's commander. We're ready to begin when you are. Elena nodded slowly. I never thought I would live to see this day. Neither did anyone else. But here we are, Yuki smiled. Would you like to give the order? Elena looked out at the stars one last time. Somewhere out there in the dimensional spaces between galaxies, signals had been detected. Not natural phenomena. Not random noise. Patterns that could only mean one thing. Someone else was out there. Someone who had been waiting, perhaps for millions of years, to meet neighbors from another galaxy. Ambassador? Yuki prompted gently. Elena turned to face the crew assembled on the observation deck. Humans stood beside Velanthi Kethra, floated alongside species whose names she could barely pronounce. They were not united by conquest or fear or manipulation. They were united by curiosity, by hope, by the simple desire to see what lay beyond the horizon. 2,000 years ago, Elena said, her voice carrying clearly despite her age. The Concord saw what humanity might become, and they were afraid. They were not wrong to be afraid. We are relentless. We are creative. We are dangerous. She paused, letting the words settle. But we are also kind. We build for those who come after. We plant seeds in soil we will never see. And when we finally reached the stars and learned what had been done to us, we chose to light a candle instead of cursing the darkness. Alina looked at each face before her. Human and alien alike, they watched her with expressions of anticipation and hope. That is what humanity does. We take our pain and we transform it into something beautiful. We take our fear and we transform it into curiosity. We take the limitations others place on us and we transform them into challenges to overcome. She turned back to the viewport, where the stars of another galaxy waited. Today, we begin a new chapter. Not just for humanity, but for everyone who chose to join us on this journey. We go not to conquer or exploit. We go to introduce ourselves, to learn, to share, to build connections that will outlast all of us. Lena smiled, and in that smile was the weight of everything her species had endured and everything they had become. Take us to Andromeda, Captain. Let's go meet the neighbors. The ship's engines hummed to life. Reality bent around the vessel as dimensional drives engaged. For a single breathless moment, the crew felt themselves suspended between 2 points in space that should have been impossibly far apart. Then they emerged into new stars, the Andromeda. Galaxy spread before them in all its glory. Billions of stars, countless worlds, mysteries beyond imagining. And somewhere among those distant lights, a signal pulsed. A greeting from beings who had watched the Milky Way for eons, waiting for someone to take the first step across the void. On the ship's sensors, a response appeared. Not hostile. Not defensive. Simply curious. In a language that would take years to fully understand, a question formed. Who are you? Alina Vasquez, the woman who had carried the truth across the galaxy and helped reshape the cosmos, gave the only answer that mattered. We are humanity. We come in peace. We have so much to tell you. Far behind them, in the Milky Way they had left behind. Trillions of beings looked up at the stars and knew that everything was different now. The old chains were broken. The old lies were exposed. And the future stretched out before them. It's unlimited and full of possibility on Nexus Prime. In a garden that had once been Chancellor Vetrix's private sanctuary, an oak tree had begun to grow. It was still small, barely reaching Elena's waist when she had last seen it. But it was strong, its roots digging deep into alien soil, its branches reaching toward an unfamiliar sky. In 100 years, someone would sit in its shade and wonder who had planted it. That was how change worked, one seed at a time, one step at a time, one truth at a time, until the cosmos itself was reshaped. And, somewhere in Andromeda, watching the strange vessel that had crossed the void between galaxies, ancient beings who had waited for billion years for this moment finally allowed themselves to smile. They had so many questions, and they had the feeling that humanity would have remarkable answers.